Yeah, we can.
All right, folks, we're going to go ahead and get started here. Welcome to the Juice Consumer Direct Podcast. I'll let you guys, Carson, take it away and go from there.
Yeah, thanks, Michael, for having us here. We're the Juice Consumer Direct Podcast. We've been running this past year, and we wanted to give an opportunity to do this podcast here. Michael invited us to do one live here from the show, so we're excited to be here with you today, and we're going to talk a little bit about that. I'm Carson Poppenger, founder, CEO of Squeeze, GoSqueeze.com, and we started our business 16 years ago. We've been in business since 2009, and we support a lot of lead buyers in the industry who are spending a considerable amount on leads. We help them contact and convert and monetize the leads in a more efficient way and help generate more revenue from their lead spends. And that's what we do and focus on. And so we started this podcast so we can talk about the industry issues and things that go on in the space, problems we encounter, things like that. I wanted to take the time to introduce Jacob, and he's going to tell you a little bit about his role in our company as well.
Yeah, Jacob Thorpe. I've been with Squeeze for about 10 years. I'm over client services and partnerships. So my job is to help create cadences and strategies that help our clients contact and convert their customers more efficiently.
Yeah, I'm Nate Clegg. I'm Chief Revenue Officer here at Squeeze. Been here for a little while too. Been in the industry for a long time. Got to kind of have a baby face. So I've been doing it for almost 18 years, which in our industry is a long time, right? And when we decided to make this podcast, the goal was genuinely, hey, let's make something that's not a commercial. And that's what we've done. We'll bring in industry experts, we'll bring in the right sort of people. We talk about things that are actually valuable, they're worth your time, they're worth the listen. And so our audience so far has liked it and done a good job with it. So that's what we've done today as well. We've got 3 guests. Carson's going to introduce one right now who are genuinely industry experts with valuable things to say and answer.
The goal today is to walk you through really the sales funnel with 3 leading minds in the industry, and we're excited to get them up here to share some of their thoughts on the future of lead generation and what we all can do to continue growing in 2025.
And rather than doing one panel with all 6 of us up here kind of talking all at the same time and things like that, we thought 3 20-minute segments. We're going to take you through 3 20-minute segments, introducing each person, and we're going to have discussion around each part, starting with the top of the funnel and the lead generation, lead buys, and scaling lead buys. So we want to introduce Justin Henderson, who's the CEO of No Limit Direct, and I'm going to give you a little background on Justin. So come on up, Justin, join us. We've worked with Justin now for like 5 years, and Justin was the CMO for AmeriCorps and was there through some of their biggest growth years from 2021 to 2023, scaled the business considerably during that time. He also led marketing for Inogen, which is a large medical device company. You've probably seen a lot of their advertising. He was there through a lot of their growth and helped lead their marketing leadership with portable oxygen device and the space that they operate in. It was integral in pioneering a lot of their direct-to-consumer business that they do for medical devices. Prior to that, Justin spent 10 years in the media agency space, where he led teams marketing for brands such as Dow Jones, Wall Street Journal, and First Corp, National Debt Relief, American Standard, and many others. Today, Justin's building his own mortgage brokerage called Zipland out of Laguna Beach, and is a and he's the partner chief operating officer there at that business. And he's also the founder of an ad agency called No Limit Direct, and which we work with Squeeze, and specializes in lead generation for finance, mortgage, and home services industry. So really broad base of experience. So welcome, Justin. Thanks for being with us.
We got to turn his mic on, guys.
The mic from. Here we go.
Thank you, Carson.
We did it. Sort of.
I'm done.
We're just going to share right here.
Yeah, that's okay.
Get back up here, Justin. Let's go. Let's make this happen.
Hey, appreciate it, Carson.
We're just rolling with the live issues here.
Yeah, it's all good. Yeah, so Carson and Squeeze and I have actually worked pretty deeply together for the last 5 years. That's some great things. They were a big catalyst in a massive growth surge at AmeriCorps. I think we went from something like 35 million and when I started up to 180 in 12 months and then up to 370 or so in about 24 months. So Squeeze was a big part in that. I also brought him into my media agency space contact is a major issue, and they're pretty damn good at it. So thank you. I appreciate being up here. I'm honored to be a guest, and thank you all for showing up.
Yeah, thanks for being here.
Let's jump in.
All right, so what do we want to talk about?
Yes, let's talk a little bit. Obviously, 2025 is here, and lead strategies are changing, and we're wanting to adapt and know, hear what you're doing. How are you approaching 2025 as compared to how you approached years prior? What's changed with the way that you're viewing top of funnel?
Well, obviously there's the elephant in the room with the one-to-one consent and TCPA, and there's the proliferation of AI and how you deploy that and how you use that across the board or wherever you can, and that's probably the biggest shift that I've seen. And obviously a lot of, or maybe not obviously, but a lot of the core channels that were mainstays in direct response, like paid search, have become so impacted on a unit economics basis that people are going much deeper into programmatic, the content discovery space, junky lead ad, garbage, dirt merchant traffic, and basically just going outside of the core curriculum to drive efficiency, because the unit economics have become so impacted on the core channels that are highly penetrated, like paid search, direct mail. I think the one-to-one consent push is going to force folks to be marketers again. I think the most heavily affected people are going to be those that live and die on lead ads that just can't achieve opt-ins on their brand. I mean, just think about it. If you have a big checkbox on a lending tree, for instance, and you're a brand like Zipline, but you're competing with Loan Depot and AmeriSave and Countrywide, it's going to be that much more difficult to achieve clicks. Therefore, you're going to pay for that in pricing, right? Because the click-through rates how you affect yield management on the listing side.
I have a question for you about this.
Yeah.
It's a very good point. We're going to have to get creative, especially if you're not a big buyer.
Just got to be a marketer again.
Yeah,
I mean,
marketer.
you know, it's like, oh snap, I have to actually make my own ads.
Yeah.
I have to test creative. I have to
Right.
constantly improve. And I have to, you know, it's a different approach too when you're doing it on a lead gen to sale
Yeah.
versus an internal operator in a business, right? Because there's a lot of interconnected elements. They're like a living organism. Whereas a lead generation company is, it's more just like a tripod. It's like you're buying, you're selling, and then your operational connection. And as long as they're at ease and you keep the balance right, you can do it well. But being an internal operator is a lot more difficult.
So there's a lot of scammers, let's be honest, in our industry. How have you refined your personal, let's say maybe your BS meter, right? Like, how do you identify the fraudulent lead providers or traffic sources? Because there's a lot of them out there. What have you done to kind of...
You get a TCPA demand letter in the first week.
Yeah, I was asking for a friend.
Well, Justin,
That's a good question, actually.
what kind of, specifically, what kind of scammy stuff have you seen happen? Because we were talking about this earlier, and you mentioned a few things. Let's go over, a few of the scammy type lead submissions you get.
I mean, there's a lot. I spent the early part of my career in ad tech, and I did a good portion of my work was just doing like digital forensics on clicks and leads. I mean, look, it runs the gamut. You'll buy leads in the personal loan space, and you'll see the same social security number 5 times with 5 different names, phone numbers, and addresses.
It's probably not a good lead.
Yeah, you'll see the same IP submit 400 leads in 1 millisecond. You know, there's a million ways. You'll get actual people in click farms submitting leads, real humans that will just do it, 20, 30 times a day. On some high ticket or high variable cost lead transactions. So I've seen a good portion of it. But you know what? You do have the benefit if you come to these shows, you can kind of smell the people that are full of it. And that tends to be the first sip.
That's
Like,
kind
I
of
don't
a gut.
believe this guy.
Yeah, that's kind of a gut measure. Like some of the ones I've seen is.
I don't want to be sexist. Don't believe the gals either. Don't believe anything.
Oh, right.
Equal.
If they,
I hate everyone equally.
well, if they send you an
Just trust
email,
everyone.
yeah. If they send you an email and it's from a Gmail account, usually not a good sign. We don't want to talk too much about where we are geographically today, but sometimes geographics play into that. Where they're.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's like no knock on offshore businesses. They're very, very valuable if leveraged correctly and in the right place. I think it's at this stage of the industry, given what's happening with TCPA, I tend to veer away from any kind of lead origination that's centralized outside the U.S. generally speaking, but I flex that a little bit for my near neighbors in Mexico and
Sure.
Canada. But when we go across the pond, I start getting a little.
Well, it's relationship based. Relationships matter.
When it comes to labor and BPOs and all that stuff, I've used a lot of offshore stuff very successfully and made the unit economics, resulted in a much more favorable outcome for me. So it's just about finding that right mix.
So one thing you mentioned, all of the bad actors or what we view to be bad actors. What are the things and the tools that you put in place now on the front end to ensure that you're protected by those, to make sure that the leads that you're getting are compliant and that they will put you in a position to succeed?
Yeah, well, I mean, there's the blatantly obvious ones, right? Like demand, trust, inform, and Janaya can be a little limiting. So it's you have to assess each situation individually. I'm not opposed to the one-to-one consent, vehemently, but I do see how it's a very broad stroke maneuver that is not necessarily doing good in every instance. So, I don't envision this thing to be a full, paper cut that just switches from one day to the next. I think it's going to be an evolution. I think if you don't know somebody and you don't have a relationship with them or a proven track record, I think you do need to go for validation that the lead is happening on the IP they say, consent's given, if you're pulling credit, the proper TCPA disclaimers are in place, the TCPA disclaimer has a one-to-one or a dynamic consent that resolves before the lead's deployed to you, and it's going to take people some time, but I think that's where you start. Even if the one-to-one consent is not there, Janaya and trust informs there, you have another echelon of cover, even though it's not completely legally defensible.
Yeah, I think independent of what happens with the ruling, the thought and the cognition that people have been having about the lead generation process is going to be a good thing. It's requiring us to be a lot more conscious and conscientious of the leads that we are generating, that we're dialing, that we're messaging. And I think that in practice, it forces us to be a little bit better. It forces us to be more strategic, to be marketers. And in the long run, independent of what happens, I think that feeling, that principle will be a good thing.
Yeah, I mean, the whole premise of this, right, is that the consumer space feels relief from a bombardment of unwanted and unsolicited calls, in particular with age records, right? Like, we're that big insurance debacle with a $5.5 million judgment that came from a whole hassle of millions of aged records getting RVNs hammered every day. I think as that ebbs, it's going to become more and more important for people to go back to what true database marketing and working their own, squeezing the juice out of their own, bucket of leads. It's going to be more lucrative. Because if you just think about it, if someone stops getting 1,000 calls a month, but they're your record and you have consent and you call them religiously and you send the right messaging, you figure out how these people are and how to one-to-one message them. I think that's going to be, you just have to squeeze more juice out of the lemon. And that's what marketing is really all about, right? When you scale a lead buy, you're going to see efficiency erode in every channel. So what you do is you go outside your core channel mix. You go within each channel, and you go outside your core, for instance, paid search. You have a core set of head terms. They're very lucrative, but you hit some point of efficient frontier where bidding higher to get more clicks results in every click costing more, and it erodes your unit economics, and it doesn't make sense anymore. So you start adding other keywords that convert at different rates and different contact rates. So it's just going to force you to be more in tune with analytics and more involved in media mix optimization, looking at covariance analysis, going back into things going harder into things like connected TV, maybe going back into DR TV, looking at the halo overlay on paid search, on your direct mail, figuring out the Texas two-step a little bit.
Yeah, and I think anybody who's an industry expert, who's paid their dues, who's doing things the right way, want to embrace what you're talking about, Justin. Because if there's a barrier of entry, that means your expertise and your skill set allow you to thrive. Our industry, for years and years, whether we want to admit it or not, has been rife with pretenders. Those pretenders muddy the water. They make it difficult. They make it so that we have some of these conversations that we're having. Well, if you have to be good, well, good. Now we can get rid of the pretenders. We can focus on the people who are professionals. Take this industry seriously. We've been around long enough. focus on what really matters.
Yeah, I think that, like, the end result, I mean, I agree. I think it's going to take some time, but it's going to be better for the consumer, and it's going to be better for the legit advertiser who's good at what they do and has just a core value of continuous improvement. Because, I mean, that's how you continue to excel. You look at the best ones, you copy it, and then you make it better. You get innovative.
I think building trust with the consumers is one thing that we've talked a lot about, just creating a better customer experience. And that's really, I think, what the intent of the one-to-one consent really at the heart of it is just making it a better customer experience, like you said, and get creative. I think multi-channel seems to be making a resurgence, right? Like you said, direct mail. I've seen a real big lift in direct mail campaigns and things like that recently in the market, and I think that's going to continue too.
Yeah, I think email is going to get a resurgence too. I mean, all the one-to-one channels. I mean, I think people are going to do one-to-one marketing on social a lot better after this. Like, it's just
less noise creates more pull-through, right?
Yeah. And as long as you focus on conversion as part of that whole pathway, and you continue to improve on both sides on your bidding strategies, your audience targeting, and work your CPOs down, focus on quality, and then also start leveraging things like AI for like dynamic creative optimization, which will improve your conversion rate and elevate your buying power on the buy side. They just have a reverb effect when you do them both right.
What kind of plays do you have on AI right now?
We're doing a lot on the two-way messaging, AI-driven two-way messaging, voice bots, trying to leverage it for a few other things I'm not really ready to talk about yet, but I'm really big on using it for creative optimization. But I'm not ready to roll out anything too frankly just yet.
Yeah, we're looking for ways to use it to just create better efficiency. We have a few things that we worked on at Squeeze. We've got like an inbound AI voice agent appointment setting platform that we've built out, and we're rolling that out now with a few clients. It's really interesting because we can take those after hours inbound calls and have the AI agent convert that into an appointment, which we then can contact again the next day or the next time we're in the office. It just creates more contact, more lift. The other piece is Feel Voice, which we've talked about on our podcast. Feel Voice is a call analytics platform to review the agents and the sales process, not only from the initial outbound, but all the way through the sales close one to analyze different aspects of the call. And
are you guys using AI for workforce management?
We haven't yet. It's interesting.
Yeah, because one of the biggest challenges of scaling, like a really large scale, short-term burst of media when you're an internal operator of a business, is to determine like the most efficient levels of staffing at the right times, and then even deeper than that, which reps do you want to be there when and for what leads, and coming up with that, like the ideal deployment destination for every single lead based on its like dynamic profile done by AI. Super intriguing. People have been trying to do it for a long time. Always a complete S show. And it usually makes all your reps quit. And it's their recruiting problem.
I remember talking to a buddy about this kind of concept that you're bringing up, Justin, of doing analytics, doing AI to determine what lead to call, when to call, what person to put it in front of. We basically just said,
sounds good in theory.
Yeah, we talked about it. We were like, we wish there was just this button and there was a dollar sign on the button. You just click that when you're ready to
in order for that to even conceptually work for me, you have to have massive scale. You cannot try to do that with like 50 reps. Like that to me is like 1,000 rep, 100,000 leads a month to 1 million leads a month for 1,500 reps, that kind of thing. And I think there's incremental gains that could be so monetarily huge that it'd be hard to ignore, but it's going to take a lot of time and testing. There's a lot of resistance to it because most people like me who've been doing this 20 plus years, have been burned trying to do it so many times. It always sounded good to me.
It does sound good. Whoever does it's going to make a lot of money.
Well, Justin, just in summary, what's your big takeaway for 2025? And then we're going to have you come back up for Q&A when we wrap up. So tell us what your big takeaway for this year is.
Go big or go home. No, I'm just kidding. Well, that too. But probably just, like I said, focus on the basics of like being a marketer. Like do it academically. Start with your TAM, look at your market penetration, look at your goals, figure out what kind of percent of the market share you need, and work into it from there. Do it intelligently. Do stuff you don't feel like is necessary, and really embrace being your own marketer. Be a one-to-one marketer and still exploit the lead eggs as much as you can and all the other stuff. And look for the opportunities when the vacuum of big buyers bounces and the one-to-one consent happens. Be an opportunist.
Right on.
Very cool.
Well, we'll have you
Thank
back
you,
up here at the end.
It's always a pleasure, you guys.
All right, thanks,
Thank you.
Justin. We
Thank
appreciate
you.
it. So, funny story about this time last year, I walked into a room very similar to this one, with a whole bunch of tables, a whole bunch of people sitting on it, and all of a sudden, I didn't realize this, they gave out a huge award, and it's called the Tim Burke Pioneer Award, and our friend, a local genius and pillar of our community, Steve Rafferty, received that award. Can you do that? So welcome the CEO of Action Process and our friend, Steve Rafferty. We're super grateful that you come on here and be with us on the panel.
All right, thanks guys. Happy to be here.
Yeah, for sure. Well, we have questions for you.
All right.
And the first question I have for you, Steve, is you work with a lot of really established companies, been around for a long time. You've seen the good, the bad, the ugly with it. When it comes to like lead scoring, kind of as we go down the funnel, right? Justin was top of the funnel. You're going to get those leads and like really make something out of them. What are they doing in terms of like lead scoring? What's the best practices that you think are out there for it?
All right. Well, I'm going to answer your question, get into lead scoring, but I'm going to take a step back first.
Okay.
If we're talking about a lead buyer, what they're doing, I think lead scoring, in my opinion, is still a relatively advanced thing. When I think of lead scoring, I'm thinking of using a predictive model to assign a score that's really associated with the probability that this lead is going to become a customer, right? But I think a lot of folks miss out on the basics even before getting into things like lead scoring. So you get a lead, and thank you, Justin, for background on generating leads. You get this lead, and there's a good chance, hopefully, that's going to turn into a customer. But some of those leads that you receive are just not going to be a customer ever. There's no chance. Zero. Worst case, some of those leads you buy will get you sued, right? And that's even worse, right? You go out, you make this investment, you buy a lead, you generate a lead, and lo and behold, you could end up in a multi-million-dollar lawsuit. It's fitting that we're on the Troutman the Mean stage. Troutman has done a phenomenal job in really educating the industry about some of the risks associated with leads. So the way I think about it is when you get this lead and you're trying to determine if you can turn him into a customer, you first have to figure out, filter the stuff out that you know you don't want, right? There's some leads that you're not going to be able to convert. So I'll give you some examples of that. So if you can't contact it, phone number's bad, you're never going to convert that lead. Or if it's a dupe, let's say it's a lead that you just bought from someone else the day before, or it's an existing customer. You can't close the same lead twice, right? So that's one that you're not going to be able to close. And then maybe it just doesn't meet your criteria at all, right? Every industry, and we're fortunate we work across all industries, but all the different industries have different criteria that they look at for leads. So like if you're in the debt space, you might be looking at how much credit card debt do they have, right? If they don't have the right amount, it's never going to fit as a customer. So those are the types of leads you want to identify up front as soon as possible. And you don't want those leads going into your sales process. You don't want to be working those leads. And then the really risky ones that we worry about the most are the ones where maybe you don't have consent. Now we have this one-to-one requirement. You don't have one-to-one consent. You're using regulated technology. That can be problematic. It could be it's a serial litigator that filled out the form. Don't want to call them. Or an area that we're really worried about is with is fraud. There's a lot of bots out there filling out forms. So what the bots are doing is they'll get real contact information, real consumers, and use a bot to fill out the form. Right? That is a consumer that's not expecting your call. That's a consumer that will likely sue you. So those are all the sort of the high-risk leads. So I wanted to give that preface because those are things, we're very focused on creating an efficient acquisition process, right? And so those are leads you want to filter out up front, identify up front, and then you have the remaining leads, the ones that you could potentially close. That's where it's important to score those, figure out which ones are most likely to turn into a customer, and try and focus your efforts on the ones that have the attributes that are most appealing for you. And I'm excited to hear Cameron speak more about that in a second.
And so it sounds like what you're saying is do the work you need to do to get the bad leads out. Don't chew up your agent. And part of the problem too is you send bad leads into your agent, you beat them up over time, create a bad experience. Worst case scenario, you get sued. So like, go to that extra effort to make sure it's all lined up and proper. You talked about one-to-one consent. What are you seeing out there in terms of like, what are some of the smart strategies companies are using to get ready for it?
Yeah, well, on the scoring, let me go. I'm going to tie back to the original question.
Okay.
So with the scoring, I think the people that the more sophisticated buyers that do it really well use it to inform their bidding. Right. In some verticals, you can buy leads in an auction model, a ping post model, and you can use that score to influence or drive the bid price that you pay for a lead. Right. So generally speaking, pay more for the leads that are most desirable, pay less for ones that are less desirable. And it's really fascinating for me right now in the new environment that's happening that these strategies are going to completely change. Right. So the ping post model is going away, right? In the old model, as it exists, well, it still exists for the next 3 weeks. Consumer goes to a form. On that form, there's a marketing partner list, right? That marketing partner lists 1,000 companies. So that lead generator has the opportunity to sell that lead to any of those 1,000 companies. And so if they sell it to one, they don't want it, well, let's sell it to somebody else. Right, and so this idea when you're bidding on a lead, you're truly bidding on a lead. If somebody else, you don't want it, someone else will take it. In the new one-to-one world that we're moving towards, it's a totally different thing because now you're really not bidding on a lead anymore. You're going to be bidding on an ad placement. You're bidding on the right to be presented to that consumer. So that there's a lot of nuances, and we can dig into that if you guys want to. But there's a lot of technical challenges associated with that.
We talked a little bit before the podcast that I had this kind of this dawn of intelligence on like, hey, we're actually just going. In some ways, we're going back, right? Like a lot of the coach paths used to have dedicated ads in them and some other things. Then they all kind of went away to getting general information and selling it to everybody. Well, now I'll go back to at least in part dedicated ads along that path and making it a little bit better of a consumer journey.
Absolutely, yeah. It's funny when we're talking about that because it is true. I think the old Reg Path model is coming back, and what we mean by that is this idea that the consumer is going to be presented individual brands where they give explicit consent for those individual brands, and that's that. They either agree or they do not. But the idea is to give that consumer a lot more control.
I think the big concern, obviously, in the new model, everyone's unclear about, and we talked this morning on the main stage when we kicked it off about how prepared are people for this change that's happening, like you mentioned, in 3 weeks. And there's so many unknowns. I think a lot of it's like unit economics. Like, how is this going to affect where you can only sell a lead once or twice to a direct brand? What's the cost for that to take place? And then what's the monetization opportunity? And what can companies really bear to pay, right? There's like, what can they afford in that whole mix based on their product, cost of goods and their average tickets. So it's interesting to consider. But I want to say congrats to Steve for really being ahead on this as much as they have with Active Prospect. I've seen them putting out a lot of information about this ever since they started talking about it last March or April, I think it was. And you guys have really been.
Yeah, it was actually. It's funny because it's been over a year now since this was announced. Here we are, a few weeks out, and people are finally scrambling to make some changes. But we originally put out some content in December of last year about a process called Ping Post. So we said, hey, Ping Post is going away, all right? But it's just going to change. It's not going to completely go away. The idea of when people talk about Ping Post, the idea of the ping is there to figure out who the best buyer is, right? It's a matching process. So this website wants to maximize their revenue, right? So they want to sell that lead to whoever's going to spend the most on that particular lead, whoever really values that consumer.
When you say the best buyer for it, it's the buyer that's paying the most, not necessarily the buyer that the consumer. Am I understanding that correctly?
Yes, that's a good. In the current model, it's whoever's paying the most is who's going to get that lead. for sure. So when I say best, maybe not necessarily the best for the consumer, so good call out. And that's a good segue though as well. This new model, there has to be an added step that we call the pick, where the consumer, what we mean by that is that's the point where the consumer gets presented these different options. Maybe it's one, maybe it's 3, 4, 5, however many advertisers the publisher decides to display to that consumer. Now the consumer has control to decide who they're going to choose, right? Who do they want to get their data to? And it creates some interesting dynamics, like Justin mentioned. If you're a small mortgage lender and you're going up against Home Depot or Wells Fargo or Rocket or one of these really well-known brand names, that can be, I think, a challenge and an opportunity. So the challenge is you're probably going to have to pay more, right? You're going to have to pay more for the right to get in front of that consumer because you're a lesser-known brand. But the opportunity is, man, what a great branding experience. Like you've got this high-intent consumer who's shopping for a mortgage, and your brand is getting presented to that consumer, whether they choose you or not. You are getting that branding opportunity, which is incredibly valuable.
What percent of our, well, maybe that's not the right way to phrase this. Do you think people are ready for 1% genuinely? How many companies out there are ready for it? And if they're not, what do they do? Like, if they're fantasy right now, like, what do I actually do about it? Like, what advice do you have?
Yeah, the short answer is no. I really don't think people are ready at this stage. And the reason I say that, I think there's been a lot of work done, and I think people are really scrambling now. They're adjusting their process to get 1-to-1 consent. But if you're a lead buyer, you need to make sure you have a way to verify in real time before you call that lead whether you have 1-to-1 consent. Right? Like for Trusted Forum, we provide a way. You have a session replay. You could go watch those if you want to, but it's not realistic to go watch these things for every single lead. You have to check programmatically. And so if you really are ready for 1-to-1 consent, you need to be checking it, right? You have to check to make sure you've got 1-to-1 consent. And I think a lot of people aren't ready to do that yet, just from what we're seeing. And then on the flip side, for the publishers, a lot of them are sort of changing their process. And it's been a really tough year for lead vendors having to completely change their business model for this new rule. And there's still things that need to be done, like tagging the advertiser name so that people can actually check programmatically if they have 1-to-1 consent. So there's still a lot of I think work to be done.
Yeah, like I said, we had a nice conversation on Friday and talked about something. What you just said, like it really clicked for me. I didn't realize how important that would be, because there's a certain level of trust that has to exist between the buyer and the seller. But at the same time, like that level of trust needs to be verified in all kinds of ways. And having a trusted form on it's important. You know, do that maybe. But actually having something programmed in where your system's telling my system, hey, this is working, this is right, I can attest to it. It's really, really important because, yeah, sure, trust but verify has to exist in our industry. I think that's super important. One of the things that, as you just have talked about, the increase of need to really pay attention to your leads, it's going to cost some more. You have to get creative. You're just going to have to do more with that lead. You're just going to have to be smarter with it. It's going to be more expensive. You're going to have to go out of your way to really make the most of it. And you being an expert in the industry, what have you seen people do to like really do that well in terms of like, hey, I got this lead. What do I do now to really make it count?
Yeah, I think the key here is having a follow-up strategy that matches the types of leads that you're buying, right? And so if you have a really high intent lead or high quality lead, then you should have a process that's geared for that type of lead, right? So you want to make sure you have a really high quality follow-up process because that's a much more expensive lead, and it's worth the investment to have the right follow-up process. And I think a lot of times, people that they're sort of worried about one-to-one and like, oh man, I'm going to pursue some other strategies, whatever. But it's like this is a higher value lead. Yeah, it's probably going to cost you more, but it's going to convert at a higher rate. And so overall, your customer acquisition cost might go down, even though you're spending more per lead. And so I think as long as you have a good process, there's service like Squeeze, and have a high quality follow-up process to make sure you get those people on the phone and get them closed.
We love getting people on the phone.
Well, and we've also noticed that, like, if you give them a really white glove kind of experience, and that's what we try to do, the propensity to buy on the back end's higher. That's what you were saying, right? Like, you got a better quality lead, give them a better experience, propensity to buy on the back end is going to be higher. You just have to trust us. That's kind of the
And with this pick model, you are engaging with the customer in the funnel, like with your brand, much earlier. So you need to have a very cohesive strategy from that initial ad to transaction. Consistency from your marketing team and your sales operations teams, promotional messaging, things like that are truly white glove and can set your brand apart.
That's right.
Well, great. That was we really appreciate you hopping in and speaking with us. When you look back at the end of 2025, last question, what do you think the theme of 2025 will be for the lead gen industry?
Yeah, I think this is going to be a year of a lot of change, right? I've been doing this for 20 years, and this is, I think, the biggest change in the industry that I've seen. This move towards a one-to-one consent requirement. I think I would advise people to lean into it. There's a lot of chatter at the show right now saying, "Oh, well, it's going to be delayed," right? Like, there's people saying maybe it's not going to happen in the next 3 months. Maybe it's not going to happen at all. I think it's inevitable that it's going to happen at some point. Maybe it gets delayed, but at the end of the day, put your consumer hat on. Consumers want control over who contacts them, and the regulators are going to give them that control eventually. It might take a little while, but they'll get it. And so I just advise people to lean into it. I mean, I think it's a great opportunity. These are going to be higher quality leads. They're going to have higher intent, higher close rates, and it might be more expensive, but I think it's a really good opportunity to take advantage of.
I think it's good for the most part. The thing that we need to make sure that is controlled is the power that's given to the professional litigators and plaintiffs. That's what I'm concerned is, like, we don't want to encourage more activity in that area, right? With these rule changes. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. Well, thanks so much, Steve, for being here.
Yeah, thank you,
Thanks
Steve.
for having me. Appreciate it.
And we'll have you back up for questions in about 20 minutes.
All right, sounds good.
All right, next up, we have a friend of the program, Cameron Bakhtiari, and then we're very, very excited to have him here with us. He's a leading industry expert with full responsibility from lead acquisition through revenue recognition. He served in senior leadership roles at Loan Depot, PennyMac, Baringo Solar, Mission Loans, and he's been a trusted advisor for many more companies. Also, he's been teaching for over 10 years with the Decision Sciences program at Pepperdine in their MBA program, and I've learned this firsthand. He not only has a passion for data analytics, but he has a passion for sharing and teaching about that. So we're excited to have you here. Thank you, Cameron.
Thank you guys for having me.
Yeah, we've learned a lot working with Cameron on projects over the years. He just has a great ability to kind of always push, the envelope to find out the truth, what's going on, and what adjustments do we make to optimize things. And I've always loved that about Cam.
So Cam is now the CEO and co-founder of Leeds Optics, and he is. Do you want to talk a little bit about what you're doing currently and how you got there?
Sure. First off, thanks for having me. It's a great way to start 2025 with some of the folks that I like the most in the industry, and to follow Steve and follow Justin. It's just a great honor to be up here. So Leeds Optics was formed to help lead buy. So I've always been a lead buyer. I've spent time at Loan Depot. I've spent time at PennyMac. I spent time at different brands helping them on the lead buying side. And what I've seen is there's a lot of different pain points that you want to solve for. Some of the things that Justin spoke about, some things that Steve has spoken about, and a lot of things that Squeeze really helps clients with as well. And so on the flip side, we've developed technology that can assist with those things. So the first part is lead scoring. We see at best, depending on the industry that you're in, for every 100 leads that you buy, maybe 5 will turn to revenue, maybe 5. Depending on the industry, whether you're in solar, whether you're in mortgage, whether you're in financial services, that percentage may change, but typically, best case scenario is 5. So that's, you spent money on 95 leads, and it's not just the money that you spent, It's all of the operational waste that comes with it, calling those leads, texting those leads, spending time pulling credit on those leads. And so our goal is to try to flip that equation, be able to arm our clients with a lead score so they know where to prioritize their time and their resources. And the second technology that we have is the AI technology for call center. I believe Squeeze has a similar technology, but we see that most folks know who their best agents are. They know who's converting high, who's converting low, but what they don't know is what is it Johnny's doing right, what is it David's doing wrong on the phones. And so when we ask the question of how many of your calls do you actually QA, how many of your calls do you actually listen to on a monthly basis, best case scenario that we've ever heard is, one per agent per week. That's the best case scenario. Usually the answer we get is one per month per agent, or seldomly. If we get a lawsuit, then we go pull that call and listen to it. And so with the power of AI, you can listen to every single call, every second, every single word, and know exactly what's being done on every single call. And that plays into not only conversion, it plays into NPS. We have clients in the tourism industry reaching out to us. So 5-star resorts are reaching out to us. They want to use our AI technology to understand, hey, if someone was flying into Los Angeles, was concierge service offered them to pick them up from the airport and arrange transportation to bring them to the resort? Cross-selling golf, cross-selling health. So AI is huge now. And so those are two areas that we kind of focus in on.
Yeah, that's something that we found. Carson mentioned Kill Voice a little bit earlier, and insights into what is happening with the sales team. Because as we mentioned earlier with Steve, that branding now is all the more important through the whole sales funnel. Because you're in theory getting a one-to-one experience with this consumer from the opt-in to the transaction, hopefully. And so ensuring that at each step of that funnel, your agents, your salespeople are representing your brand in the way that enhances the brand, it doesn't create friction, is going to become even more important, because that is how you will now capture market share. That's the opportunity that's the competitive advantage that you can really gain, as opposed to just bidding.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I have a question. Yeah.
Sure.
I can't control myself. I've been wanting to ask this question the whole time I've known you, and it goes with what Jacob just talked about, right? Knowing the whole funnel all the way across. Just knowing as much as you have, seeing as much as you have, where is the most common breakage in that sales funnel? Like, genuinely, where does it break down more often than not within that sales process?
Yeah.
What do you see?
That's a good question. I'm going to back up just a second on the front of personalization, on the front of building reputation with our clients. Most of us, we're direct to consumer, right? We're not brick and mortar. Most of the folks that are attending the show, most of the audience that's going to be listening to this podcast, are direct to consumer. So finding a way in a digital world to build rapport, when you're sitting thousands of miles away from that customer, finding ways, whether it's with your AI technology or it's through your agent's etiquette. One reason why we decided to partner with Squeeze for many of our clients is because of that. Like, the way that you guys are able to treat clients with that white glove is so important. Saving $20 per hour to do offshore call center doesn't work. Being able to have that white glove treatment is so important. And then Nate, getting to your question, where is the breakage in sales, in that sales funnel? Quite frankly, when we go into clients, what we do, our focus is with data first. And so we bring all the data in, and we are so shocked at where we see breakage. I want to give you a good answer, but I'm going to start with the bad answer first. We go to clients, we bring in all the data from Active Prospect. Active Prospect spins off thousands and thousands of breadcrumbs, data elements on every single lead that comes in. Every step in that flow is 10, 15, 20 columns of data. And then we bring in all the call center data, your guys' data, all the way down to CRM. Quite frankly, every single client we've walked into, we have found some low-hanging fruit. We have seen that there's upwards of $50,000 worth of leads that don't even post to the system to be called, and they pay for those leads. Yeah, so bigger clients, obviously $50,000 a month. Smaller clients, every client we've walked in, we've seen that. That's low-hanging fruit. You think no one's doing that. That's impossible, but we have seen that with every single client. The second thing that you would think doesn't happen, it happens with every single client we've seen, is missed calls. Especially for clients that have an inbound practice with direct mail. We see about 30% of calls are missed. Calls, just basic stuff, calls coming outside of hours, obviously no fault of anything they're doing. Using the AI tool that you guys have to schedule calls, turn that call that comes outside of hours, turn it into a scheduled callback. That's brilliant. But then we also see during operating hours, there's calls missed. So that's basic blocking and tackling. We typically, a lot of our clients aim to build this, very sophisticated direct-to-consumer practice, but we often see that there's cracks in the foundation, and these are some examples of that. And the only way that you can really see this is bring a lot of that data into a data warehouse and analyze it, and we'll probably talk about that here. To answer your question specifically, once you've done all that, the breakage that we typically see is it's feast or famine. So in the sales environment, if you're buying a ton of leads, we see that there isn't great follow-up with sales folks. A lot of what we do is we're not selling sunglasses, we're not selling a $100 widget. A lot of what we're doing in this room, or the folks of that are listening to this podcast, we're selling stuff that is super expensive. It's a longer sales cycle. A lot of it may not be a one-call close. Some of the stuff may be 2, 3, 4-call close. And so if marketing is bringing a lot of leads, what we see that the follow-up isn't that great. So having very good follow-up practices, and that follow-up is in multiple parts of the funnel. If you're buying a lead, obviously Squeeze does its best. They have a proven process that gets that lead onto a phone. And then once you get that opportunity to a salesperson, they also need technology, processes, strategies, just operational discipline to make sure that they're following up with their opportunities.
I was going to just add to that. Like, we just recently had a case where we're talking with a prospective large bank credit union, and we're onboarding them and talking with them, and come to find out they have millions of members in their bank, in their portfolio, and depositors and things like that. They get 16,000 organic. They're not even in the lead space. They're a business that deals with a lot of customers and data, but they have 16,000 organic inquiries a month through their website and through their app. They have a mobile app and a website where someone says, I want to speak with a loan officer. And that lead goes to one of their branches and nobody calls it. Or they call it once and the person doesn't answer and they don't follow up. So, this problem is evident even in our lead industry with people that deal with this specifically, but also businesses that are sort of outside of our lead industry that deal with leads constantly. So
we have another case study. We're working with a current kitchen remodel company. They've got 1,000+ stores that customers will go into and they'll get a quote. And they were generating these leads and sending them to the individual stores, and each of the store managers had their own process and way of doing things. Some of them were just dialing them on their cell phones, and our conversion rate out the gate, like week one, was higher than their contact rate was before. So lead to sales opportunity was higher than the number of leads that they were just contacting. And having that sales process that's really strong and consistent and something that can be replicated is super important. Another thing that I've seen, like in this last year, for me, a highlight of 2024 was helping enable sales teams and give them feedback that will help them be able to take warm transfers and turn them into sales. That's a real skill. It's much different than taking an inbound call. So if you're taking a warm transfer and you handle that call and you say, hey, how can I help you today? Well, you called me, right? You tell me, how can you help me? Or why do you want to refinance today? Or why do you want, that's not how you handle a call. So we've built into our AI tool the ability to take that third-party talk time and run an AI analysis on it and provide best recommendations to the partner, because there's this friction between marketing and sales oftentimes at these organizations, right? Marketing is generating leads and they want to generate high-quality leads, but if sales isn't closing those leads, who's the first person that they blame? Marketing, right? If sales isn't closing leads, the marketing team is going to say, hey, sales, you need to do better. And we're able to take this quantitative data and now this qualitative data, these conversations and this customer sentiment, and make it a data point that we can now say, hey, this is actually what's happening. And on this percentage of the calls, this is what's happening. And send us your sales scripts. This is the script adherence, the process adherence. And that's been really, really helpful for both the marketing and sales teams, because there's a third party in the room that can kind of mediate and say, hey, let's come to the table. Our goal is to close more deals, so let's figure out how to do this. And that's something that I think is going to become more and more important in 2025, everything that happens once you have that lead, because these leads are more expensive, those conversion rates, and once again, that brand experience is going to be even more important.
AI is a great marriage counselor between sales and marketing. It can listen in, know if sales is doing the right thing to convert that call, or it can also tell you that a lot of people are calling in off of this specific lead source. They thought they're calling for a home loan, but they're actually calling for a car loan, or they were promised a 0.99% rate, or they were promised free solar, or whatever it may be. So this AI can listen in and really play that mediator role between sales and marketing and tell you, is it a lead quality issue or is it a sales issue? So it's a very powerful tool to be using.
Yeah, it takes the ego out, right? It's just data, and that data should be driving all of your decisions that you're making.
Well, Cam, we kind of have a similar question for you that we had for the last two gentlemen. You look back on 2025, or look forward to get a crystal ball out. I don't know how you want to do it, but what do you see coming up? What do people need to do to adjust, or how to prepare for 2025 in your opinion?
Yeah, I guess we've heard so much just on the stage. We've heard it so much in the past year. If I got $1 for every single time I heard one-on-one consent, I may not be up on the stage. I may be at the blackjack tables outside those doors. I think Steve mentioned it really well. I think we all have to be ready for change. It's disruptive change. Most organizations struggle with change, especially the larger the organization. Change can be uncomfortable at times, but if we can learn and see the benefit in some of these changes that are coming, I think it's going to be transformational. It's good for the customer experience. It's good for brands if they find the positive in it and understand how to adapt to the changes that are coming. I truly believe it's an opportunity, but that means your strategies also need to be prepared for it. It's inevitable. Lead costs will go up. It's inevitable, right? And so that means there's only two ways you're going to make up for it. From all the research I've done, from all the talking to different folks in the industry, I've heard that lead costs will go up anywhere from 30% onwards, right, upwards. And so that means you have to be able to convert all things equal 30% or greater. Are you ready for that? I think we'll get some gains just because of the one-to-one consents. If the consumer only chooses for that lead to be sold one time, well, then naturally we will see, if we change nothing in our operations, we will see a lift in conversion. But how else do you plan to make up that 30%? A direct-to-consumer process is not a single-cylinder engine. It's an 8-cylinder engine, right? From getting that lead, how quickly are you calling it, how fast are you calling it, how many times you're calling it. There's a lot of connected tissue from top funnel, all of your sales, all the way to different industries you are in, all the follow-up, all your sales strategies, etc. And so it's important that all cylinders are firing, especially when that lead cost is going to go up. And so companies that are prepared for these changes, they're the ones that are going to succeed, and they're going to see the positive in the one-to-one consent. Companies who are just, unfortunately, I see a lot of people hitting that snooze button. They feel like, hey, the battles are happening in the court. We don't need to worry about it, even though it's not 2-3 weeks away. I can continue hitting the snooze button. We saw that a lot in Q4. We saw that a lot in Q3, but that's 2 weeks away. I don't know if hitting the snooze button is a great strategy any longer.
Yeah.
And so hopefully most companies are prepared for these changes.
That's true. Well, Cam, stay up here. We left maybe 3 to 5 minutes for any questions that might be out there. So you guys look pretty shy.
Steve and Justin are going to join us back up here. We have our mics, so we're going to hand the mics off to whoever has a question. We can get a mic out into the audience. Oh, Michael's got a mic there. So,
are there questions out there, or are you guys too shy to ask such a prestigious panel anything? I could understand that intimidation. Any questions out there? All right, guys. That was weak.
You guys are so thorough.
Great.
Oh, honestly, this conversation's been great, and I love how we sort of take it through the progress of the funnel and everything. And you guys have been terrific guests here, and I want to give it up for these guys one more time. Thanks so much.
Yeah. So I think we give maybe our 3 final thoughts, and while we still have these 3 guys up here with us, I had this. It's not that big of a realization, honestly, but my realization was this: experience matters and expertise matters. We had the best panel guests for sure. And I don't want to brag, but I'm going to brag. These guys are the best. They know the industry. They've been around. They're smart. They're capable, and it showed because the content was actually valuable. They said things that are real. They said things that are valuable. They said things that are truthful. So my biggest takeaway from this whole thing was expertise matters. You get experts, you get guys like that in the room, and your business will be better. You'll make better decisions. The consumer experience will be better. Everything will be better. Expertise matters.
And I'll just say, embrace change. Be ready for it. Money finds a way, and I think that constraints breed creativity. So I'm excited to see how we all learn to deal with the unique circumstances that are coming. But yeah, be confident in your brand and make sure that you have a strategy to embrace these changes.
You know, we're an entrepreneurial industry, and you know, challenges have come up before in the past, and we always overcome them. And I think going back to the points that these guys already made, you know, you get the right people in the room, and you make sure you plan for it and you execute. And that's the big thing that we've always done at Squeeze too. Is like, if we have a challenge or problem, something comes up, you got to pivot. You can't put your head in the sand, like you said. And anyway, that's my thoughts. And thank you all for watching. Thank you for being here. And let's have a great rest of the show.
Yeah, thank you.